Hi, I'm Dan Handelman with Flying Focus Video Collective, and one thing that attracts me to do work with Flying Focus is the idea of using television to create a positive social change. What I mean by that is a world with human rights for everybody and a world where nonviolent conflict resolution can be practiced on all levels, from local, like in your house, all the way to a global level. And we find ways to promote that on our weekly shows and all of our programming. After all, we're part of a culture which is abusing the planet, and a species that is abusing all the species on this planet, including our own. And we've got to find a way to change that. So one of the things that I really like, too, is the way we use the video bus, which is a 30-minute weekly show. The concept of all aboard means that we can take any subject we want to and address it in the way that we seem fit. If we want to use a lecture for 30 minutes, we'll do that. If we want to investigate something more thoroughly, we can spend the 30 minutes and do interviews and do that. Or if we want to compile a show around a certain theme, we can ask other producers to help us and produce their own segments, and we put together a concept show. And that's really pretty exciting. In the last year, I've addressed several local issues, including police conduct. On a few occasions, I presented the ineffective Portland Civilian Oversight Board of the Police, which is known as PIAC, hearing neighbors from the Laurelhurst area talk about a sweep that was done of Laurelhurst Park, where this police swept through looking for gay men, and the end result was a few men, at least two, were beaten up, presumably by the police. And the Civilian Review Board throws up their hands and says, "I'm sorry, we can't help you because we don't have the power to do so."
I'm not sure which incident, you reviewed, because there were multiple incidents that night. So I don't know whether you reviewed the one that happened by my house or not. I was awakened by someone outside of my window being beaten mercilessly and crying, screaming for help. I called 911 immediately and watched on a clock for I was put on hold, by the way. I watched my microwave clock for 5 minutes before somebody came back on, and I thought this person was going to be dead by the time somebody came, because I could hear these body blows. The net of all that is there were, I believe, 7 policemen beating this fellow.
We don't go out and originate a whole investigation of a thing, of an incident. Particular people come forward and say, "Hey, I was wrong. I was mistreated." And we look at that case. We don't look at the Laurelhurst Park incident of whatever night it was.
According to the city code, technically we don't do investigations. We review investigations.
So Speaker Michael Zinzun came to town in April, and he spoke about the issue of police misconduct on a national level. And he talked specifically about the roots of the uprising in LA that happened after the Rodney King verdict came down.
Every race of people in the Los Angeles area played a major role in the uprising in April of last year. Everyone that I talked to, particularly the folks when we called the demonstration downtown at Parker Center, made it clear it was just not Rodney King that people were out in the streets about. It was because we had high unemployment, over 50% among our youth. We have a homeless population of over 63,000 in the Los Angeles area. That's larger than some cities. We still have an out-of-control police department who have an us-against-them mentality.
I also tackled the issue of police misconduct through an analysis of an event that happened downtown Portland in July of 1993, and that was known as the Anarchist Riot. And what really was a bunch of punk rockers and some anarchists who were attending a concert, and some of them got out of hand after police showed up in riot gear. What I tried to do was kind of focus on another thing that I like, Flying Focus, what we do, to show how the mainstream media misrepresents the counterculture, as it were, or the alternative viewpoint. And I tried to tear apart the local TV broadcasts and newspaper articles that described the incident.
Let's roll it.
Extra police are guarding downtown Portland tonight after a weekend of rioting and vandalism.
What is this? 30 seconds into the piece, and these people are already lying. Because the man said after a weekend of rioting. And if you look through the police reports and all the news reports, the only thing that it says that happened throughout the weekend was that there was an anarchist convention, that some youths were found in a house, some youths interrupted or tried to interrupt a concert up in Washington Park, very small number of people, but the only quote-unquote rioting that's described began at 8:30 and ended at about 9:15 on Sunday night. So that's about 45 minutes, and here they're describing it as a weekend of rioting. Very interesting. On one episode, I tried to provide coverage of the Gay and Lesbian Pride Parade of June 1993 in a way that would also make people think about how the Oregon Citizens Alliance tries to project their image of what gay and lesbian lifestyles are like by using clips from gay and lesbian parades in a manipulative manner.
Yeah. So do you see gays and lesbians trying to tell other people how to live their life?
No, certainly not here. I mean, this is just this is the party. It's a day to celebrate being gay, and so I certainly don't see it here, and I don't think I've ever seen it, really.
I got out in front of the camera a lot more this year, in part to deal with the overwhelming amount of material we have from all these issues that we're covering in the turbulent world that we live in. I used a format called Alternative Update, where I kind of ran a gamut of topics ranging from the Hiroshima Day commemoration to the Feminist Broadcast quarterly meeting on progressive family values, as it were. I also, ironically, covered two events that sort of balance each other out. What I want to show you clips from are the Take Back the Night March that was held here in Portland, and a public speaking appearance by Oregon's own answer to the sexual harassment issue, Senator Bob Packwood.
So as the entitlement programs we must talk about, and I'm going to talk about just four, because they're the biggest ones: Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and then other federal retirement, either military retirement or civilian retirement. Those four programs plus interest were 23% of all the money the federal government spent 30 years ago. They are today 55% of all the money the federal government spends, and in 10 years, absent any change in the law, that'll be 69% of all the money we spend.
Take back the night. Take back the night. Women together. Take back the night. Take back the night. Take back the night.
Take Back the Night marches and rallies have gone on since 1978, reflecting grassroots resistance to male violence against women.
One thing that I like to do just in general is to try to draw together the cultural phenomena with their more far-reaching implications, to try to make people think about things in a way maybe they haven't thought about them before. In Jesus, Christmas, and the Death of Superman, I examined how the comic book hero's death and then forthcoming resurrection paralleled the story of Jesus, raising the question, if Superman is just a storybook character trying to attract readers, could Christmas mythology be based on similar mass appeal tactics?
Do you know a couple of things that Jesus did during his lifetime? Can you tell me about that? Anybody?
Not right offhand.
Okay. And do you know who Superman is?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me what some of his powers are?
He can fly. Yeah. He's got a nice red cape. Let's see here. He's got X-ray vision. He has superhuman powers. Superhuman powers. We don't like kryptonite.
Can you name me a few things that, just got a few questions here, a few things that Jesus did during his lifetime?
I'm not a great believer. I'm agnostic.
Okay. Yourself?
Yes.
Same way?
Yes, we are.
Oh, so do you know anything he's supposed to have done during his lifetime?
No, not really. I read some of it when I was younger, but I don't read it anymore.
Okay, now do you know anything about Superman?
Superman? Oh yeah, I know who Superman is.
And do you know what he can do?
Well, he's a cartoon, isn't he?
Yeah, but you know the things he's supposed to be able to do.
Yeah, he's supposed to be able to see through walls, and it flies.
Hi, I'm Liz Stiller. What you're going to see is some of the segments from the video bus that have meant the most to me. The AIDS quilt and the former Yugoslavia have been programs that have touched me really deeply. Also, you're going to see some segments from the Peace and Justice Fair, some music shots.
Bringing the quilt to college campuses is good because it tends to target an audience that, number one, is fairly sexually active and are really the most at risk at this period of time, or very much at risk. And so I think when you bring the quilt amongst college-age students, then it just really brings it home to them that, you know, it does affect everyone, and especially people within, or a lot of people within college age range.
PC and I did a show called PDX Street Bytes together, and one of the reasons that prompted me to get involved in this show was that Flying Focus really feels that free speech and the opportunity to have free speech is important to people. So we put together a street interview show where we went to the streets and asked people questions of importance in our community. PC, what got you involved in Street Bytes?
We wanted to have the opportunity for people to say what was on their minds, not just to watch television and see people that they didn't know that wasn't from their community. So this is you speaking. PDX Street Bytes is from Portland, PDX. Street Bytes is a little bit of conversation from the streets. So here's something you can do. Just because we did it doesn't make it impossible.
And watch for us on the streets. You may be next.
How do you feel any of what you saw today parallels anything going on in our world or country or state?
Well, anything? There's a lot out there. There's a lot out there that certainly, it's easy to see how the roots of something as disturbing as this movement began, and it wouldn't be difficult to look about us today and see similar things that could be considered those same roots.
Very scary parallelisms right now in terms of what's going on even here in Oregon with people attempting to divide certain segments of society. It's very reminiscent of what began in Nazi Germany.
How so?
Just the ability of some people to differentiate among classes of people or lifestyles.
I don't think more violence is going to stop violence.
How do you feel about being a woman and seeing that raping has been a big part of this war? How do you feel about us being involved in trying to stop the raping, or do you feel we should let it go on and hope that peaceful methods help in it?
Well, I don't think not going to war means you're wanting to let it go on. I mean, I think there are other ways to try to talk.
No. Did you know anything about the U.S. involvement or non-involvement in Bosnia?
We don't know anything about this.
You know what's going on in Yugoslavia?
You guys know? Isn't there a civil war going on there?
Right. Should the U.S. get involved in that?
You don't have to be in any high position to do TV. If you have an opinion, which everyone does, and you'd like to get it aired, which is possible, simply pick up a camera, record what's going on around you, and put it on the air. That's the same thing we're doing. That's what's available for you. That's the intent of what the programs are that have been done by me and the producers around us today. Voicing the voiceless, giving power to people.
I think there were a number of reasons why Bush lost. Part of that was that people just lost faith. The economy was collapsing around his ears, and he didn't seem to be doing anything about it. I think another reason for it is that the Republican Party presented itself on the national level as being this far-right institution, and so it allowed Clinton's strategy of reaching for the middle to be more effective. Conservatives left the party. The other thing is that the religious right wing has become the activists of the party, and they chose not to mobilize behind the party's candidate. So they were not able to get out as many leaflets, to make as many phone calls, all of those kinds of things, which are essentially how political campaigns get won.
One thing we need to realize is that there are the different cultures and that they have that it is a form of tribalism, and those cultures have been developed. And I think it will be destructive for us to eradicate the cultures and say, well, you need to adopt a Western type of culture. I think in a new South Africa, which is going to be non-sexist and non-racist, that each person will have his or her choice as to what they want to do. It won't be the government's choice to say, you need to be a westernized Catholic, you need to be this, you need to be that. You don't have to be an African. And I think what is important is tribalism was actually, the government brought in the different tribalism and said, yes, you were Bantu, and divided it further and said, you were Xhosa, you were Zulu, you were Sotho, so that is part of the apartheid system. So what needs to happen in a new South Africa, you need to come up with a new culture where you say, you are South Africans. You no more have to identify to a particular grouping as a Xhosa or as a Zulu or as a Sotho, that you are now a South African, So we're not different entities anymore. We are collective. We belong to South Africa.
9 miles north of here, on the in North Yorkshire, on the moors, there is an American spy base with 20 golf ball radar. The perimeter is 4 miles round, so you can imagine that it is covering quite a large area, and its function is to gather intelligence from signals intelligence satellites, and it is spying on Britain, Western Europe, what was formerly the Soviet Union, and the Middle East.
Hi, I'm Cathie Stimac, and I'm an independent producer through Portland Cable Access, and I wanted to show a little bit of the piece that I used with the video bus through Flying Focus Video Collective, and the piece is on some people who live in Lisle, Washington, on the Columbia River. The family specifically is the Margaret Palmer family, and they are trying to preserve their usual and accustomed rights to fish on the Columbia River at a spot that they have used time immemorial, and wanted to get some information out to everyone that would be listening to know that they need some help in preserving this beautiful spot on the Columbia River. And the piece that you'll be seeing is a segment of the program where Margaret Palmer is speaking outside the Klickitat County Courthouse.
Yes, we're gonna continue to stay there, and right now our scaffolds are so fortunate that we're still gathering the food from there, and the support has been very helpful. There's a lot of people out there that are like the Audubon Society, there's SOF that recognize that eagle, that have had their lawyers on this case, Lawyers Guilds out of Portland, and numerous lawyers have been contacting us to give their assistance to the tribe. So there's a lot of help that we're trying to utilize and keep our how would you say, keep everything in order and form committees, move together and be strong.
Hi, this is Frank Mahoney. I live in St. John's, and I've got a job, a family, a dog, and lots of cats. And I happen to be watching the program Flying Focus Video, and didn't see anything about North Portland, St. John's area. So I decided to come down and see if these folks wanted to do something about the neighborhood. So they work with me, and we put together a couple of programs about the North Portland area and then neighborhood associations and just the different things going on. Because, I hear so many other problems going on in the other city, but nothing is ever talked about in North Portland. They always think about it as North Portland, that's with Williams Avenue, Russell, and the black population and stuff. So I wanted to talk about the North Portland area, which is the poor working folks. I work in the steel yards, and I just thought we'd have to, get a little viewpoint from us for a change. So anyway, that's why I did it.
Okay, for the DEQ, there are certain specifications of how many tons of, say, sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxides and benzene, a very toxic chemical. Just there are certain limits that they're allowed to stay within, and this company does. And in benzene, it just comes up to the very, very top of that. So they squeaked under. And what we're concerned about is that there's no telling. There's any number of companies that can all come right under the limit. There's no limit to the number of toxic producing companies that could come in.
So we're in the back of the Sonus plant proposal area. Going out towards Gilmore Steel. Gilmore Steel. Actually, I've never been on this road. I don't know if we can do this.
Yeah, I'm the radio guy. My name's Jim, and I did some video work with Flying Focus. And the purpose of my program, as I said in every program, was to teach people, you, how to use shortwave radio to receive international news in English from other countries. And this is news that is not filtered by domestic American media. And so I did this in an effort to try and let people know that there was an economical and easily accessible way to get direct news that can be different.
Of a special interest to us are the radio waves that occupy this part of the chart, because these radio waves actually have the capability of bouncing off of the ionosphere. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, and of being able to travel around the Earth, all the way around to the other side. And that's what makes it possible for us to hear these stations from other countries.
In addition to covering all these topics on our own and tapping into the local community to help produce our programs, sometimes the Video Bus features programs produced outside the Portland area. This year we had tapes produced from all over the country about places from all over the world. For instance, we had a tape from Chicago about the struggle of some workers there. We had international problems dealt with in Haiti, Cuba, East Timor, and South Africa, and a local tape that was produced by PECUN, the Migrant Farm Workers Union, about local problems that they're having.
The video of the November 12th massacre was smuggled out of Indonesia by its photographer, Max Stahl of Yorkshire Television. Arrested by the Indonesian military, he hid the tape in a recently dug grave. He retrieved it from its hiding place in the cemetery after his release 9 hours later. This CBS News segment, while making clear Indonesia's brutality, ignores the extensive United States role in creating this tragedy. Without U.S. weapons and aid, Indonesia's illegal occupation of East Timor would soon end.
The dynamic has been the same in township after township, where investigations have established that the violence is political and not ethnic.
We cannot say it's a tribal war going on in Natal, but it is a war generated by the system, you know, to destabilize all the progressive forces that are trying to come up with a solution.
Journalists have confirmed what the ANC is charging, that the government, by its actions and inactions, is behind the violence.
While Flying Focus has been producing programs for nearly 3 years, you can see that there is a never-ending range to the number of topics that we have to deal with. And so many social issues have a side to them that need to be dealt with in a new and constructive manner, that your input and involvement will always be needed and important to us. If you ever want to get in touch with us, or if you have feedback about this show, any of the shows that we've done, we really want you to call or write to us at 2305 Northwest Kearney, box number 231, Portland, Oregon, 97210. And our phone number is 503-239-7456. That's our office phone, and the voicemail where you can get our show times, that's 503-321-5051. Thanks again for tuning in to the second anniversary show, the 2-year Busiversary on Flying Focus Video Bus, and I hope you can tune in again and join us for some more programs.